Hey everybody, welcome back to Moscow. Welcome back to your Moscow update. An important one today because Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy to Moscow, to Russia, to the Kremlin, to Vladimir Putin, is here in the Kremlin, and he's meeting with and has met Vladimir Putin this morning. Very warm meeting, very warm greeting, which seems to be par for the course with these two men. They seem to be very friendly, and that's all, of course, important. A lot of people are criticizing Steve Witkoff because they say he's an amateur diplomat. I mean, surely it's better to have an amateur diplomat who can actually get on with the people he's meant to be influencing and trying to bring around the table than a professional diplomat like someone like Victoria Nuland. The less we say about that creature, the better. So what do you expect is going to happen with Steve Witkoff and Vladimir Putin? To be honest with you, I don't think there's much expectation on either side that anything is going to change. I think the Russian position is very clear, and it's been very clear from day one. Russia will not stop its operation in Ukraine, or any operation to tackle what they consider to be an existential threat to the security and the future of the Russian state. And very much that is what the political machine in Russia believes. It's what the majority of the population believe, and the majority of the population are very, very supportive of Vladimir Putin. It's something that I constantly get asked when I'm back in the West. They say that Vladimir Putin is over 80%. It can't be real. It's very real. It's very real, and it's real regarding the political classes and the ordinary people on the streets, people out on the roads. I'm in one of Moscow's 120 or so beautiful parks right now, giving you this message. And it's very much real. Are there people who disagree with Vladimir Putin? Of course there are. Are there people who disagree with the war? Of course there are. This is not an authoritarian society by any stretch of the imagination, and I'd actually argue that you're probably freer to say what you like here in Moscow than you are in parts of Europe. I certainly wasn't free to voice my opinions when I went to Moldova and or Romania and was deported for the crime of wanting to come in to talk about this completely fixed election. Look what's happened to Yevgenia Gutsul, the governor of the autonomous region of Gagauzia in southern Moldova. I did a piece yesterday on TV about that. It's quite remarkable what's happening in Europe. Back to Mr. Witkoff. What do we think could happen, might happen? Well, look, it's always good to talk. And if nothing else, the warmth with which the two men greeted each other this morning is a positive thing. The fact that the Russians and the Americans are still talking. Remember, during the Biden calamity, the Russians and the Americans stopped talking to each other, and it was the Americans that stopped it. Remember, it's not Russia that's cut itself off from anybody. It's the world, the United States, the EU, and Australia, who've cut themselves off from Russia, as we know now with these sanctions and this tariffs debacle. We're going to talk about tariffs in a minute. We're seeing that China, Russia, India, Brazil are being cast together even tighter and tighter. This is the most ridiculous foreign policy tool, I think, beyond sanctions that I've ever seen. Do we think that there'll be anything to come out of the meeting with Mr. Witkoff? Number one, does Mr. Witkoff have the authority to make a deal? He's the authority to contact President Trump and tell him how he's getting on. And we hear from President Trump that he has a lot of respect for Vladimir Putin. He likes Vladimir Putin, and his wife Melania likes Vladimir Putin. Do we expect a deal? No, there cannot be a deal. The only deal will happen when Russia is happy and believes that this war will not have to be fought by the men who are fighting it now as children, that the pro-radical nationalist Nazi Banderite regime that is in Kiev, which celebrates mass killers, anti-Semites and Nazis, is removed, is gone, that there's no NATO in Ukraine, no NATO troops in Ukraine, and that the people of the new regions of Russia which, they are now, these republics that are returning to Russia. Remember, these places were all part of the Russian Empire. This is not a dramatic event in regards to Russia dreaming this stuff up. And we remember Vladimir Putin giving his lecture to Tucker Carlson when they did their fantastic interview. So I don't think anything's going to change. And the sense here is that, maybe President Trump thinks he's showing like one last chance before. One last chance before what exactly? What exactly is the United States going to do? Remember, the United States imports a lot of things from the Russians. It imports its nuclear fuel, a lot of it. It imports lots of important things, and so does China. Rare earth minerals. The US defense industry is essentially completely reliant on foreign rare earths. It would take decades for the US to mine this stuff. The stuff that they bought or did a deal on in Ukraine doesn't exist. Anything of any value is under Russian control, including the lithium mines and the biggest coal mines. So what is the reality of all of this? It's all theater, it seems to me. And we know that President Trump, if you're a fan, I'm a fan, I like him. I like President Trump. I think he's an interesting character. I think he's fundamentally a decent human being. I think he wants wars to end. I think he's naive. I think he's been atrociously, dangerously advised on Ukraine. This idiocy, which I just did a video about this 14-to-1 ratio. I mean, I'm here in Moscow, look around you. I mean, that's just a complete joke. People are laughing at it, essentially. Although there's not much to laugh about a war. But that is just insanity. So there's the same reality. I saw Liam Cosgrove, the Grey Zone journalist, yesterday at the White House, asking a question about the forced conscription in Ukraine and the fact that 60-year-old plus now are going to have to go and die for the narco-fuhrer, Mr. Zelensky, the dictator. And President Trump said, I don't know anything about that. Imagine that. The President of the United States doesn't know. He doesn't know that. He didn't know that the Ukrainians had launched 1,000 drones into the Russian Federation, attacking civilians. He doesn't know a lot of things. Let's hope Mr. Witkoff leaves Moscow knowing a little bit more. But is Donald Trump the kind of man you want to walk into an office and instruct anything to? I mean, I think this is a work towards the Führer moment where everybody wants to be on the right side of Don, because the Don can turn, and if he turns and you're in the wrong part of the trajectory, you could find yourself out in your ass. Look at the labor statistics guy. So look, we live in hope, we always do. We want a just peace in Ukraine, but it seems very clear to me that the only way this is going to end is either on the battlefield or when people actually get around the table with a plausible reality. Forget the Europeans. They just are, they're so irrelevant to this. They have no weapons. They have money, but the US doesn't have any weapons to sell them. They don't have anything to sell them. So we heard yesterday as well that the US is only going to sell sort of reserve stocks or things that it doesn't need to the Europeans. That's not what Kiev says it needs. The Ukrainian air defense system is basically completely overrun now, and the Russians are building tens of thousands of these Shahed drones, Garan as they're called in Russia. Of course, they're all completely made now in Russia. They're not Shahed; they're based on a Shahed design, which is Iranian. And remember, Iran has become the foremost developer of drone technology, battlefield drone technology on Earth, and it was the most sanctioned country on Earth. Look what Russia's done. Look at this country. Look at the army it's fielded. Look at what it's inflicted on this alliance of over 50 countries, which is standing against it, standing with Ukraine, who everybody knows now is a grossly corrupt crime syndicate. That's what Zelensky and his group is, Yermak. They're all just completely criminal thieves. We know that. They even tried to ban the anti-corruption groups. Do we hope for anything from Mr. Witkoff's visit here in Moscow? Of course we hope, but do we think that Vladimir Putin's suddenly going to drop to his knees in front of the big Don and ask for, please let me into the Oval Office, let's do a big photo shoot? Give me a break. It's never going to happen. The Russians have a trajectory, they're going to stick to it. And either, get out of the way or suffer the consequences. I don't think the Russians here are remotely in the mood for a bad deal. No deal is better than a bad deal. Talk to you soon. We'll watch and wait and see what goes down, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Okay, talk to you all soon, guys.